Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to simplify the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about how to improve and increase your engagement across the social media platforms. Regardless of what platform, the ingredients for increasing engagement are the same. Now, barely a week goes by that I don't have somebody reaching out to me saying they tried this social media thing. No one watched their videos, no one engaged with their content. There was no growth happening. And so rather than me having to answer and give them directions individually, I thought I'll create a podcast episode and that way I can direct them to that. So engagement, let's define it first. Let's talk about why it's important. And then I want to share 6 different strategies that will help you improve your engagement, okay? Social media engagement refers to the interactions and the connections between a brand, which is us, and the individual or brand or individual and their audience, okay? Now, it does encompass an incredibly wide range of actions depending on the platform that people could be taking, but it encompasses things like this. If somebody likes or has a reaction or might save your post, might make it a favorite. Of course, comments, these are seen as a strong form of engagement. Shares, retweets, man, that was hard for me to say. Now that Twitter's getting popular again, maybe we'll be talking more about that, but shares or retweets or reposts as well. Mentions or tags. So, one of the great strategies that you should be doing on your content to get people sharing it is perhaps in the call to action saying at the end, hey, listen, if you've got a friend or a family member that needs to hear this message, make sure you tag them down beneath. That's one of the ways that you can encourage engagement. We'll talk about more as we get into it also. And of course, anybody kind of interacting with your video, stopping it, playing it, turning the sound on, rewinding it, those kind of things. Direct messages. This is another form of strong engagement. If somebody's reaching out with a direct message after engaging with your content, clicks on any links as well, and then follows, subscriptions or joins. So basically it's somebody stopping and doing something. Now it's important for several reasons. Okay. Now if we were to think when somebody's engaging with your content, it's a sign to the social media platforms that there's value in your content. And the social media platforms want to be dishing up valuable information to their audience because it keeps them on there for longer. Now, also, there was some evidence from some research that Facebook did a number of years ago that said that when we're scrolling through social media and there's no engagement, but there's just kind of random scrolling, we've all done that from time to time, or is it just me? But when we do that, there's a strong evidence to suggest that that's linked with really poor mental health outcomes from social media. However, if we're on there interacting, if we're building community, then there is some research to show that social media might have some beneficial impacts, okay? So, I'd like to look at that research again. But I think you know where I'm going with that. Engagement is a good thing for us to be building there too. So, how do we go about building engagement? If your engagement has been low and you want to improve it, if your engagement's great and you want to make it even better, then these 6 steps will take you through a cycle that will help with all of that. Now, the first one here is by far the most important, and it is you've got to know your target audience. Okay, now let me share an example with you. So Fenty, the beauty brand, Rihanna put together, I think it was 2017 as well. Now, in understanding her market, my understanding, again, no expert here on makeup, but I understand the Fenty story because it's a beautiful business case, that there was a hole in the market there where there was only a limited number of shades of makeup, foundation and things like that too. And so women who had skin that was not the average color there too had really poor choice. And so when Rihanna and Fenty came out, they had 40 different shades of foundation. I think it's now gone up to 50. They found a hole in the market and they addressed that needs by understanding their target audience. Now, if we look at business practice and we understand it, there's many different definitions for what a business is, but the definition that I like is a business exists to solve a problem. And so if I said to you, what problem does your business exist to solve? Now, most chiropractors, when I ask them that question, they go ash and white. And they stop talking and they mumble and fumble. Now, if you can't begin with answering that question, then this is in part one of the reasons why you're really struggling on social media, is that you haven't defined what problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. Okay, that's where it needs to begin. And so, again, we look at someone like Fenty. They got really clear about what problem they were solving. There's not enough range in foundation colors there. Who are they solving it for? A diverse range of women, particularly women who didn't have the normal skin color and tones there too. Now, as a result of that, I think they ended up doing something like $100 million in sales in their first 40 days. It's an incredible business case that was just built off the back of really understanding their audience. And so you need to really define who your target audience is. Who do you exist to solve a problem for, and what problem do you exist to solve? So you want to know things about like their age, their interests, their locations. You want to be then tailoring your content to cater for that person. Now, we want to know not only just what problems we're solving, but what type of person is this? What are they interested in? What are their things that they do in their spare time? How would other people describe them? The reason that you want to define your who is that when you really understand who this person is, you'll never struggle with coming up with content for them again, because you'll be constantly just creating content for this person. Okay. When I go through, whether it be in one of the social media challenges or inside any of the courses, when we put together what's often referred to as this avatar story, it helps enormously with content creation. So the first step that I would say, if you're struggling to get engagement with your content, I'll ask you the question of who you're creating it for, because our content is not going to be valuable for everybody. Okay, it's very distinct. Like, if we look at a brand like Lululemon, not everybody's interested in Lululemon. If we look at a brand like GoPro, these are two companies that do a great job on social media, but they're sharing very different content because they're solving different problems and they have a different audience. Okay, so step number one is you need to know your audience. All right, point number 2, if we're wanting to increase your engagement, is we need to be creating valuable and shareable content. Now, not rocket science there, okay? But how do we go about creating that valuable and shareable content? Well, first of all, it has to be built upon the back of knowing who we're creating it for. But to some extent with that too, it's trial and error. You have to find out what works for your community and your communication styles. And we'll talk about measuring this a little bit later on. But one of the things that can help you with regards to this too is there are probably some patients that you're already looking after. And one of the questions that you want to be asking them is, what accounts do you already follow? And what sort of content do you like to engage with when you're on social media? Do you like videos? If you like videos, what length of videos? Is it live videos that you like? Is it Instagram carousel posts? Are they short kind of reels? We can find out what's already working for our target audience, and then we can do our version of that. So you should be following several of the accounts that your target audience is following. This is an important part of research. Now, what we tend to be often doing is following other chiropractors. Now, just because other chiropractors are doing doesn't mean that that's what's necessarily working. Although if you are following other chiropractors, look through their posts, see which ones are getting the most engagement. And if they have a similar audience to what you do, then it may well be worth following them, okay? You might want to think about creating content themes. So rather than trying to go one piece of content at a time, maybe there's a theme in around posture for a month, a theme in around asthma for a month, a theme in around colic for a month. This theme here can help to keep your content valuable. It helps to take somebody through a journey also. Let me give you some ideas in terms of 3 different sorts of content that once you know your audience and you're solving a problem for them, is more than likely going to be valuable. And the first is educational content that solves a problem, or at the very least starts to move your audience one step closer to the outcome that they're looking at. Now, and we want to look at another brand example that did really great with this. Casper is a mattress and sleep product company. Now, they're not just posting about mattresses, okay? So again, if we were chiropractors, the equivalent of this would be us posting about chiropractic all the time. But what they do is they share a whole bunch of content about sleep education, sleep disorders, the science of sleep. They're providing and positioning themselves as an authority all in around sleep, not just a mattress authority. And so you have the room to be able to position yourself as an authority in around not just chiropractic, okay, but in around an area of health. Perhaps it's pre or postnatal, and maybe it's in around raising healthy families. Is it around athletic performances? So you don't have to be just talking about chiropractic all the time. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to not talk about chiropractic all the time, because most of our community isn't interested in chiropractic. Now, what they're very interested in is the outcome or the transformation that happens as a result of seeing a chiropractor. But we want to be talking to that transformation, okay? We want to be positioning in around it. And there are many pieces of content that you can share that'll help to move your audience one step closer to a health outcome they're looking for without them having to come and see you for an adjustment. So On last week, I had a catch up with a great friend of mine. She occasionally listens to this, Dr. Natalie Bird. And Nat does a great job at the moment. She's sharing lots of videos in around polyvagal and the relationship between the nervous system and stress and health and where chiropractic fits into all of that. She's not talking about chiropractic all the time, but she is talking to ways that people can start to self-regulate, that they can start to calm down their nervous system, they can start to prepare their body for healing. As a result for that, she gets loads of engagement on her content. There's lots of interaction, lots of questions, and lots of sharing. She's doing a really great job with regards to that. So sharing educational content that gets your audience one step closer to a health outcome they're looking for is a great way to get more engagement, okay? The second sort of content you should be sharing in order to build social proof, you want to be posting patient success stories and testimonials. Now, for those of you that can't do this, I'll give you an example in a moment. For instance, here in Aussie, we're not allowed to share testimonials, but sharing your success stories should be a really important part of your social media strategy. And we love this sort of content. I mean, we love testimonials full stop. That's why, advertisers do them across the board. Now, if you can't share testimonials, then there is a version of this that you can do. It's just showing some version of a before to after. So here in Australia, you could show, changes in somebody's posture. Now, you're not going to share the story along with it, but if you see improvements in posture, even change in x-ray shape, change in range of motion, if somebody's able to have better balance before and after, and then you could link this back to those things. So rather than going through and sharing the specifics of a case, what you could do is be a little bit more generalized and still be able to show before and after, okay? The third sort of content that you should be showing, and this is the sort of content that'll get you the most engagement out of everything, is sharing behind the scenes content. Let your community get to know you. What did you do on the weekend? What's your favorite holidays? Let them know things. What do you do at your lunchtime? This sort of behind the scenes content. Still to date, when we share this with our practice, it gets the most engagement out of everything. You've heard me talk about before sharing things like 2 truths and a lie. These can be fun social type things for you to be sharing on social media that will help the community get to know you. Okay, this helps to build trust. And trust is one of those things that, is at an all-time low across social media, across healthcare, across everywhere. So if I get to know you, then I'm much more likely when the time comes to get on the phone and call you in your practice also, okay? So those 3 sorts of posts, if you want to create variable posts, educational posts that have somebody get closer to a health outcome that's important to them, build social proof by sharing patient success stories and testimonials, or at least showing kind of before and after. And the third one is letting them see behind the scenes. Now, the third umbrella, if we're wanting to improve patient engagement or potential engagement with our audience there, is to make sure that we're utilizing lots of different content formats. And so rather than posting just all videos or all carousels or all infographics, we want to make sure that we're using across the entire platform. In fact, if you go back earlier on this year, I went through the different sorts of Instagram posts. I think there's 8 or 9 different Instagram posts. And the bigwigs at Instagram have said time and time again, we want you using as much of the platform as possible. In fact, there's been a real major correction this year where for much of 2022, Instagram was pretty much showing reels all the time. And you might have noticed if you're making reels, they were getting lots and lots of views. But that's changed, particularly in the last 6 weeks, because they realized they overcorrected with that. So they want us using the entire platform. So making some videos, putting together an Instagram carousel, an image post there, maybe going live using Instagram stories. So think of it like a smorgasbord where you get to have a taste of all the different bits and pieces. Now, yes, on Instagram in particular, if we're using this, then primarily be making short videos, anything less than 90 seconds, and Instagram carousels, okay? If you're on Facebook, then again, they don't have a carousel, but again, you want to be making short videos, but also doing some text-only posts. These are just called a status update. They're the ones that tend to do best, but make sure that you're utilizing lots of different content types rather than being stuck just on one type. This is something that I've fallen a little prey to, of being a little bit too heavy on the video, and I'm fixing that up right now. Step number 4 is make sure that you are engaging and interacting with your audience. So this would look like you responding to comments or responding to messages and doing it promptly. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be there within minutes of them coming there, but the faster the better. And you certainly wouldn't want to let it get any more than 24 hours, okay? It's easy for us to be checking in with our phone once or twice a day. I'm not suggesting that you be looking there every moment, but set a notification that pops up that you can check at the end of the day or the beginning of the day also. Now, when you are responding to these comments or these messages, then what you want to do is that you want to encourage a discussion, okay, a dialogue that goes back and forwards, and we want to move slowly with things. And so I work with a lovely chiropractor who was sharing some of the new techniques that he was doing, and he had some people who would comment underneath and say, I have that problem. And then what he immediately did after them saying, I have that problem was, oh, you could come into the office, here's the phone number, give us a call and schedule an appointment. He moved too quickly. The appropriate thing to have been at that time or to have said at that time was, I'm sorry to hear about that. Tell me more about it. How long has it been going on? What have you tried before that hasn't worked? We need to move slowly with this in the same way that we can't jump straight into marriage, because marriage is the equivalent of, well, the marketing equivalent of inviting somebody in for an appointment. We need to go through the dating process first, and that would be finding out more about it. So asking open-ended questions where we can get into a conversation rather than just yes or no questions, okay? So ask questions, encourage discussions, and maybe even, this is one of the wonderful things about a live video, is that live videos in particular really encourage a lot of interaction, a lot of conversation. Step number 5, if you're wanting to improve your engagement, is to make sure that you are scheduling your content and there's consistency about it. Nothing breaks down trust more. Nothing will rob you of engagement more than if the social media platforms see that you're there for a little while and then disappear, there for a little while and disappear, okay? We need to make sure that we're showing up on a weekly basis, and at the very minimum, 3 times a week is what you should be showing up, okay? Now, there are lots of great scheduling tools out there. My favorite, the best, and the one that's for free, certainly when it comes to Instagram and Facebook, is inside the platform itself. Meta has a scheduling tool, okay? Now, if you don't know how to find that, just do a Google search on scheduling from inside of Facebook, and it makes it really easy for you to schedule from that Meta scheduling tool over to Instagram and share the same content over to Facebook, and you can have them happen on different days, and you can do all these great things there where you can sit down once a week for 20 or 30 minutes, schedule out your week's content and not have to think about it other than jumping in perhaps each and every day to see if you've got any comments or questions that you need to find out about there too. And the 6th and final point for improving your engagement is to make sure that you're monitoring, analyzing, and adjusting your schedule based on what the data shows you, okay? So you might find, for instance, that posting on a particular day gives better results. Posting at a particular time gives better results. You might find that certain sorts of content work better for your audience. You might find that certain sorts of topic work better for your audience there too. And we want to be taking this data back, and as my coach talks about, there should be data, not drama, okay? We don't get upset. We just notice, every time I make a post like that, it doesn't do great. But when I share my social behind the scenes content, it does fantastic. How do I link them in together? How do I create less of a border in between my educational content and my behind the scenes content, okay? So if we're not monitoring, if we're not measuring, it's really hard for us to adjust and make the appropriate changes there, okay? So let's sum up those 6 points to help you increase your engagement, therefore grow your social media, reach more people, grow your practice, change more lives. Step number 1 is that we need to know our audience, okay? Remember Fenty Beauty and Rihanna? Once they knew what problem it is they solved, remember the purpose of a business is to solve a problem. They were able to reach forth and they created a brand that's had tremendous growth in very little time as well. Step number 2 is that we need to be creating high quality, valuable content, okay? This can only happen after we know who we're creating it for, okay? Because what's valuable to one person is not valuable to another. Step number 3 is we need to be utilizing all different or lots of different content formats, videos and carousel and live and stories and reels, image posts, okay, status updates. Make sure that we're having a dip into each and every one of those. We need to be engaging with our audience, checking in, responding to questions, creating a dialogue, making sure that we take it slowly. And step number 5, we need to be consistent. The best way to be consistent is to schedule your content, okay? Loads of tools out there. If you're happy with the tool that you're already using, don't change. But if you're looking for a tool to use, the scheduling tool inside of Meta, I think, is brilliant. And the final one is to make sure that you're monitoring, adjusting, and changing as you go along. Remember, there's no drama, there's just data. Look at the data and let that direct you towards what's working for you and your community. All right, folks, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Now, remember, your community needs you to know this stuff, okay? There are people literally begging for health solutions like yours, but they can't hear you until you master this stuff. As always, thanks for all that you do. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.